My wife admitted to having an affair with a work colleague and suggested an open relationship, but I taught her a lesson and now I live with her friend whom she has always envied. It wasn't the confession that broke me, it was her suggestion afterward. Diana looked me in the eye over the kitchen counter, where we'd shared countless late-night laughs, and said, "Marcus, I love you. I'll always love you, but I think we need an open marriage." My grip tightened on the coffee mug in my hand as I processed her words, feeling the foundations of our life together tremble beneath me. I'm Marcus, 33. I've been married to Diana, 31, for 7 years. When we met, it was the kind of love that felt predestined. Her wit matched my sarcasm, her fiery ambition challenged my steady determination. Together, we built a life, a nice house in the suburbs, steady careers, and dreams of starting a family. But as they say, all that glitters isn't gold. Diana worked in marketing for a mid-sized firm. She was charming, vibrant, the kind of woman who made a room notice her, while I was the quiet type, working as a software developer. I'd always known she attracted attention, but I trusted her, believed in us. Or I had, until a few weeks ago, when her late nights, collaborating with a colleague, Ryan, started feeling less like career ambition and more like a cover. It was a Wednesday evening when it all came crashing down. Diana and I had just finished dinner, a quiet, uneventful meal of baked chicken and asparagus. She seemed distracted, picking at her food, and I figured she was just stressed about work. She got like this sometimes, lost in her thoughts, and I'd always been the type to give her space. But that night, as I cleared the plates, she leaned against the kitchen counter with a glass of wine in her hand and said, "Marcus, we need to talk." I froze. Those words. Everyone knows that line, the one that precedes heartbreak. I half laughed, trying to mask the unease creeping up my spine. "What's up? Did I leave the seat up again?" Her lips barely twitched at the joke. That was when I noticed the tension in her posture. She wasn't fidgeting, wasn't avoiding eye contact. No, she was looking straight at me, her shoulders squared, like she'd been rehearsing for this moment. "Marcus," she started, her voice low and deliberate. "I need to tell you something, and I want you to try to understand." I placed the plates in the sink, wiped my hands, and turned to face her fully. "All right. Go ahead." She exhaled, the way someone might before ripping off a band-aid. "I've been seeing someone. His name is Ryan." The words hit me like a physical blow. Ryan. A name I'd only heard a handful of times in passing. "From work?" I asked, though I already knew the answer. She nodded. "Yes. He and we've gotten close over the past few months. I didn't plan for it to happen, Marcus. I didn't want it to happen. But it did." I couldn't speak. My mind raced, scrambling for any explanation that made sense. This was Diana, my wife, my partner, the woman who swore to love me in sickness and health, through good times and bad. How had we ended up here? "I'm telling you this because I don't want to lie to you anymore," she continued, her tone eerily calm. "I still love you. That hasn't changed. But I also have feelings for him. And I think we need to have an open marriage." I blinked. "An open marriage?" "Yes," she said firmly, like she'd been preparing for this conversation for weeks, maybe months. "It's not uncommon, Marcus. People do it all the time. It doesn't mean we're over, it just means we're evolving. We don't have to lose what we have." Her words swirled in my head like a bad dream. Evolving? What the hell did that even mean? "You've got to be kidding me," I finally managed to say, my voice quieter than I expected. "I'm not," she replied. "I don't want to hurt you, Marcus. I really don't. But I can't pretend these feelings don't exist. I want to be with you, and I want to be with him. I think this is the only way we can make it work." For a long moment, I just stood there, staring at her. This wasn't the Diana I knew. The woman I fell in love with wouldn't have done this, wouldn't have shattered my world so calmly, so casually, like it was just another bullet point on her to-do list. I set down the dish towel and turned toward the hallway. "Marcus, please say something," she called after me, her voice cracking for the first time, but I didn't answer. I walked to the bedroom, shut the door, and sat on the edge of the bed. My hands were trembling, my chest tight. I thought about the life we'd built together, the years of love and trust, the future we planned. All of it felt like a lie now. I heard her outside the door, knocking softly. Marcus? Please! We can talk about this. Talk about what? How she wanted to sleep with another man but keep me around as her safety net? How she'd decided unilaterally to rewrite the rules of our marriage without even asking me? Not tonight, I finally said, my voice hoarse. I need to think. She lingered for a moment before walking away. I could hear her footsteps retreating down the hall, the sound of her sinking into the couch. That night, I didn't sleep. I sat in the dark, replaying her words over and over in my mind. By morning, one thing was clear: the woman I married was gone. And if she wanted an open relationship, I'd give her one, but not the way she imagined. The next morning, I told Diana I'd thought about her suggestion. She sat across from me at the kitchen table, nervously sipping her coffee. I'll do it, I said, keeping my voice even. We'll try the open relationship. Her shoulders visibly relaxed, and a small smile crept onto her face. Thank you, Marcus. I promise, this will make us stronger. But, I added sharply, there are rules. We keep it private. No parading it around, no bringing anyone home. I don't want to hear about Ryan or anyone else. What happens outside stays there. She nodded quickly, eager to get my agreement in writing, so to speak. Absolutely. I agree. No drama, no mess. Inside, I was a storm of anger, but I didn't let it show. If this was the game she wanted to play, fine. But I'd play it better. That evening, Diana left for her first date. She didn't even try to hide her excitement. Fresh makeup, a dress she hadn't worn in years. Don't wait up, she said casually as she walked out the door. I didn't answer. As soon as she left, I picked up my phone. There was someone I needed to call. The night Diana left for her plans with Ryan, I sat on the couch, staring at the door long after it closed. She didn't even bother pretending it was anything but a date. The way she'd put on that red dress, the one she hadn't touched in years, and how she hummed to herself while doing her makeup, it made my stomach turn. She was practically glowing as she walked out the door, leaving behind nothing but her perfume and an awkward silence. But I wasn't going to sit there feeling sorry for myself. If she wanted to rewrite the rules, I could play that game too. And the first person that came to mind was Vanessa. Now, let me tell you about Vanessa. She's been Diana's best friend for years, but their friendship has always been a little strained. Vanessa's the type of woman who doesn't have to try. She's effortlessly funny, warm, and, most annoyingly to Diana, drop-dead gorgeous. Diana always had this subtle envy for Vanessa, the kind she tried to mask with backhanded compliments and overly loud laughs when Vanessa told the story. I could tell it drove her crazy how Vanessa could just walk into a room and own it. And honestly, I'd always liked Vanessa. Not in that way, at least not until now, but I'd be lying if I said I hadn't noticed how easy it was to talk to her, how different her energy was from Diana's. So, I texted her. Nothing dramatic, just, hey, Vanessa. You free to grab a drink? I could really use someone to talk to. It didn't take her long to reply. Marcus? Everything okay, I kept it vague. Just been a rough couple of days. Could use some company. She agreed without hesitation, and we made plans to meet at a little wine bar downtown the next evening. When I walked into the bar, she was already there, sitting at a corner table with a glass of white wine in hand. She waved me over, flashing that easy smile of hers. Marcus, she said, standing to hug me. It's been forever. What's going on? I sat down, ordered a drink, and before I knew it, the whole story was spilling out of me. The affair. The open marriage proposal. Everything. Vanessa listened without interrupting, her expression shifting from surprise to anger to something I couldn't quite place. When I finished, she leaned back in her chair, shaking her head. I always knew Diana had issues, but this? She said, her voice low. Marcus, this is next-level selfish. You're telling me. I muttered, taking a long sip of my drink. She's always been like this, you know. Vanessa continued. She has to have everything, be the center of attention, the one with the perfect life. And now she's trying to have you and him? That's rich. I laughed, the sound more bitter than anything. Yeah, well, she thinks this is the modern way to save our marriage. Vanessa rolled her eyes so hard I thought they might get stuck. Modern my ass. She just doesn't want to deal with the consequences of her actions. We talked for hours. Vanessa told me about her own dating misadventures, her job, her family. For the first time in weeks, I felt like I could breathe. She wasn't just easy to talk to, she got it. She got me. When the night finally wound down, I walked her to her car. She turned to me before getting in, her expression softer than usual. Listen, she said, resting a hand on my arm. You don't deserve this. Don't let Diana walk all over you. Her words stuck with me as I drove home. When I walked through the front door, the house was dark. Diana was already asleep, her purse tossed carelessly on the counter. I noticed a receipt sticking out of it, dinner for two at a fancy downtown restaurant. I didn't touch it. I didn't need to. Climbing into bed beside her, I stared at the ceiling, Vanessa's voice echoing in my head, "You don't deserve this." For the first time since all this started, I felt like I wasn't alone. Diana's open relationship plan went exactly how I expected. It started great for her, at least. For the next couple of weeks, she came home glowing after every outing. She didn't share details, sticking to the rules we agreed on, but her body language told me enough. She was smitten, practically floating into the house like a teenager in love for the first time. Meanwhile, I kept my own plans quiet. I wasn't out chasing meaningless flings or trying to one-up her with random dates. No, I had Vanessa. And while we weren't officially together, something was building between us. It started with more drinks. Then late-night phone calls. Then dinner at her place, where she made me laugh so hard I forgot, for a while, how broken everything at home felt. Vanessa wasn't just a distraction, she was a reminder of what it felt like to be seen, heard, and respected. The irony? Diana had no clue. She was so wrapped up in Ryan, or whatever fantasy she was chasing, that she didn't even notice how much time I was spending out. She didn't ask where I was going or who I was with. About a month into our arrangement, cracks started forming in Diana's perfect little love affair. One night she came home later than usual, her makeup smudged and her eyes red like she'd been crying. She dropped her purse on the counter and slumped onto the couch without saying a word. I kept my tone casual. Rough night? She didn't answer right away, just stared at the floor like it held the answers to her problems. Finally she said, "Ryan's been distant lately." I almost laughed. Of course he had. Guys like Ryan, the ones who love the thrill of stealing someone else's wife, don't stick around when the novelty wears off. I'd known this would happen. "Oh?" I said, keeping my face neutral. She sighed. "I don't know. I thought it would be different. That he'd understand me." I bit back the urge to say something snarky. Instead, I nodded. "Sounds tough." If she noticed the lack of sympathy in my voice, she didn't comment. While Diana's fantasy world was crumbling, mine was only getting better. Vanessa and I started spending more time together, dinners, hikes, even a weekend trip to a nearby lake. She didn't ask for anything, didn't push me for more than I could give, but with every moment we spent together, I felt myself leaning into her more and more. One night, after we'd cooked dinner at her place, she poured us both a glass of wine and sat down across from me. "You know," she said, swirling her glass, "this probably isn't the healthiest thing for either of us." I raised an eyebrow. "What do you mean?" She gave me a small smile. "You're married, Marcus. And yeah, I know it's a mess, but I don't want to be someone's rebound. You need to figure out what you want." Her words hit harder than I expected. She wasn't wrong, I did need to figure things out. But in that moment, looking at her, I already knew the answer. "I want this," I said quietly. "I want you." Vanessa studied me for a long moment, then nodded. "Okay," she said softly. That was the first time we kissed, slow, deliberate, like either of us wanted the moment to end. Back at home, Diana's relationship finally imploded. Ryan ghosted her completely, leaving her looking more and more lost every day. She started asking me to spend more time with her, dinners, movies, anything to fill the void he'd left. But I wasn't the same man she thought she'd keep on standby. I wasn't going to be her plan B. It all came to a head one Saturday night. Diana had been moping around the house all week, trying to act like everything was fine, but I knew better. Ryan was out of the picture, His ghosting wasn't subtle, and now she was scrambling to reclaim the life she'd so recklessly gambled. That evening, she suggested we go out to dinner. Just us, she said, giving me that soft, hopeful look I hadn't seen in years. I think we need to reconnect. Reconnecting. Funny choice of words. For weeks, I'd been building a real connection with Vanessa. But I played along, nodding as if I didn't see through her desperate attempt to patch things up. We went to her favorite restaurant, the same place we used to go for anniversaries back when things were good. She was trying, I'll give her that, dressed up, hair perfect, smiling in a way that didn't quite reach her eyes. The conversation was strained at first, full of the kind of small talk you'd expect between two people on a blind date. Eventually, she sighed and leaned forward. Marcus, I know things have been weird between us. But I think we can fix this. Don't you? There it was. The pitch. I set my fork down and looked at her, really looked at her. For the first time, I didn't feel anger or sadness or even betrayal. Just a calm detachment. Diana, I said, my voice steady. What exactly are you trying to fix? She blinked, clearly thrown off. Us, she said. Our marriage. I know I made mistakes, but I love you, Marcus. I never stopped loving you. I let her words hang in the air for a moment before replying. You want to fix our marriage now? After everything? Her face crumpled. It was a mistake, okay? I got caught up in something stupid, and I see that now. But we've been together for so long. I can't imagine my life without you. She reached across the table, her hand resting lightly on mine. I know I hurt you. But we can move past this. We can start over. For a second, I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. But then I thought about all the nights I sat alone while she was out with Ryan, the way she looked me in the eye and told me she wanted to keep both of us, like I was nothing more than a backup plan. I pulled my hand away and shook my head. Diana, I don't think you get it. This isn't something we can move past. You made your choice. And I've made mine. Her brow furrowed. What do you mean? I leaned back in my chair, folding my arms. I've been seeing someone too. The color drained from her face. What? You wanted an open marriage, I said. Well, I gave it a shot. And now? I've found someone who actually makes me feel alive. Her eyes filled with tears. Who? She whispered. Vanessa. I said it calmly, watching as the realization washed over her. She looked like she'd been punched in the gut. Vanessa? She choked out. My friend Vanessa? Your former friend, I corrected. We've been spending a lot of time together. And honestly, it's been the best thing to happen to me in years. Diana sat there stunned, her tears falling freely now. How could you do this to me? She whispered. I laughed bitterly. Do this to you? Diana, you started this. You wanted an open marriage, remember? You can't cry foul now that the tables have turned. When we got home, she tried again, begging, crying, pleading with me to reconsider. But it was too late. The wheels were already in motion. I think it's best if you find somewhere else to stay, I said. I've already spoken to a lawyer. The papers are ready. She broke down completely, sobbing on the living room floor. But I didn't feel bad. Not anymore. She wanted freedom, and now she had it. The morning Diana left, she tried every trick in the book to stay. She was standing at the door, bags in hand, sobbing like I'd wronged her. She kept going on about how much she loved me, how this wasn't how things were supposed to end, and how she'd do anything to make it right. And honestly, I didn't feel a thing. I just told her, calmly, I might add, that it was too late for that. She had made her choices. She wanted freedom, and now she had it. She didn't take that well. The tears turned into anger pretty quickly. She started blaming Vanessa, calling her a homewrecker, like that wasn't the most ironic thing I'd ever heard in my life. I didn't even raise my voice. I just told her Vanessa treated me better in a few months than Diana had in years. That shut her up fast. She just shook her head, mumbled something I couldn't make out, and stormed out the door. I didn't bother watching her drive off. I shut the door, locked it, and let out a deep breath I felt like I'd been holding for months. For the next couple of weeks, life got weirdly quiet. No Diana. No drama. Just peace. Vanessa and I started spending more time together, and it felt natural, easy. She wasn't pushing me for anything, and I wasn't rushing into anything either. But every time we hung out, it became clearer. This wasn't just a rebound. One night, we were on her couch, wine glasses in hand, when she asked if I ever thought about Diana. And I had to admit that I did. Not in a nostalgic way or anything, more like remembering a really bad TV show you force yourself to finish for some reason. I told Vanessa that I didn't miss Diana, I missed the version of her I thought I married. Big difference. She just nodded, smiled, and told me she was glad I'd figured that out. Meanwhile, Diana's life was falling apart, exactly like I knew it would. Ryan ghosted her, no surprise there, and the whole office found out about the affair, so her social life at work was basically toast. From what I heard, she was crashing with some distant cousin in a crappy apartment. Do I feel bad for her? Honestly, no. She lit the match, and now she's dealing with the fire. As for me? I'm doing better than ever. Vanessa moved in a couple of months later, and we're building something real, something I didn't think I'd find again after Diana. The best part? It's not complicated. It's not exhausting. It's just good. Diana? She's just a chapter in my life that's over. And for the first time in years, I don't feel like I'm looking back.